Something just happened with the New England Patriots that might not grab national headlines right away. But if you're really paying attention to how this roster is being built, you can see a very clear pattern forming, and this latest move fits right into it. The Patriots have signed Kendall Vildor to a one-year deal, and while on the surface it may look like a simple depth addition, there's actually a lot more to unpack here when you connect all the dots. This move came together quickly, and it reflects exactly how this front office is operating in free agency. They're not chasing splashy names just for attention. Instead, they're targeting specific roles, specific fits, and players who can contribute in multiple ways. And that's where Vildor comes in. He's not being brought in to be a star. He's being brought in to do a job band, possibly several jobs at once. If you look at his background, Vildor has real NFL experience. Back in 2021, he started 12 games out of 17 with Chicago and showed he could hold his own at the professional level, recording pass breakups and staying active in coverage. In 2022, he added even more experience with 9 starts, picking up an interception and continuing to contribute defensively. That kind of experience matters, especially for a team that's trying to build reliable depth across the roster. After his time with Chicago, he had a short stint connected to the Tennessee Titans system, and that detail is important. He has already been around coaches who are now part of the Patriots staff. That familiarity plays a huge role in why this signing makes sense. This isn't just a random pickup, this is a player the coaching staff already knows, already understands, and likely trusts in specific situations. Over the past couple of seasons, Vildor hasn't put up eye-popping numbers, but that's not what the Patriots need from him. In fact, what he brings is consistency. Across recent years, he's been a steady contributor in terms of tackles and pass breakups, even if the production isn't headline-worthy. And for a depth cornerback, that's exactly what you want. Someone who can step in, play 10 to 15 snaps if needed, and not become a liability. Now, when you look at the current state of the Patriots secondary, you start to see the bigger picture. This is already a strong group at the top. The team doesn't need another starting caliber corner. What they needed was someone to fill that gap left in the rotation, someone who can step into the role previously occupied by depth players who are no longer on the roster. Vildor fits that mold almost perfectly, but there's another layer to this move that shouldn't be overlooked: special teams. The Patriots are clearly emphasizing versatility, and Vildor brings value there as well. He's the kind of player who can contribute on punt coverage, kickoff units, and other special teams assignments. That versatility increases his chances of making the final roster and gives the coaching staff more flexibility on game day. And when you zoom out even further, this signing is part of a broader trend. The Patriots are gradually bringing in players who have ties to the current coaching staff, not in an aggressive, all-in way, but strategically, one piece at a time. You can see the roster slowly being shaped with players who fit a certain system, a certain mentality, and a certain level of familiarity with how things are run. That approach reduces risk. It's easier to integrate players who already understand the expectations, the schemes, and the culture. And while not every move is going to be a home run, stacking these types of signings can quietly build a very complete and reliable roster. Financially, this deal is likely minimal, probably around the veteran minimum range, which makes it even more appealing. Low risk, solid upside, and added depth at a position where injuries can quickly become a problem during the season. So when you put it all together, this isn't just a random late free agency move, it's a calculated addition. It strengthens the depth chart, reinforces special teams, and continues to align the roster with the coaching staff's vision. Now the question becomes how this fits into the bigger offseason strategy, especially with the draft coming up. Because if the Patriots are this intentional with depth signings, what does that say about how they plan to attack their remaining needs? What do you think about this move? Does adding Kendall Vildor actually make this defense deeper in a meaningful way? Or is this just another low-impact signing that won't move the needle? And that's where things start to get even more interesting. Because this move doesn't exist in isolation, connects directly to what the Patriots are quietly setting up for. The next phase of the offseason, and especially when you start looking at the early signals coming out of their draft preparation, while everyone is focused on the obvious needs like wide receiver or edge rusher in the early rounds, the Patriots are already laying the groundwork for something deeper on the defensive side of the ball. One name that's been gaining attention internally is Zachy Wheatley, a safety prospect out of Penn State who recently had a top 30 visit with the team. And when you really break this down, it tells you exactly how the Patriots are thinking about roster construction, not just for this season, but for the next few years. Wheatley brings size at 6 feet to around 200 pounds, and more importantly, he brings production from a high-level college program. Playing in a conference like the Big Ten, you're constantly facing top-tier competition, and he held his own. He recorded 74 tackles, added an interception, and showed strong awareness in coverage situations. But what really stands out is how efficient he was when targeted. Very limited completions allowed, minimal yardage given up, and a quarterback rating against him that shows he can hold up in coverage responsibilities. Now think about the current structure of the Patriots secondary. At the top, there's a lot to like. There's real confidence that this group could be one of the strongest units in the league, but once you look past the starters, you start to see where the questions are. The depth at safety right now leans heavily towards special teams contributors rather than true defensive rotational players, and that's where a player like Wheatley starts to make a lot of sense. This is where the long-term thinking kicks in. The Patriots recently added a veteran presence at safety on a short-term deal, which is great for immediate stability, but that also creates a ticking clock. At some point, you're going to need the next guy ready to step in, and instead of waiting until that need becomes urgent, the Patriots appear to be trying to get ahead of it. Drafting someone like Wheatley wouldn't be about instant impact, it would be about development, bringing him into the system, letting him learn from experienced players, and giving him time to grow into a larger role. Maybe in year 1, he contributes in limited packages or on special teams. But by year 2, maybe year 3, he could be ready to take on a starting role or at least become a key rotational piece. And that's the pattern you're starting to see across the entire roster. Low-risk free agency signings to stabilize depth combined with targeted draft investments to build the future. It's not flashy, but it's methodical. And if executed correctly, it can create a team that's not only competitive now, but sustainable over multiple seasons. So when you connect the dots, the Kendall Vildor signing and the interest in a player like Zachy Wheatley are part of the same strategy. One addresses immediate depth and special teams. The other potentially secures the future at a key defensive position. It's short-term and long-term planning happening at the same time. The big question now is how aggressive the Patriots will be when the draft actually arrives. Do they stick to this patient, build-from-within approach? Or do they make a move that surprises everyone and accelerates the timeline? Because if this offseason has shown anything so far, it's that every move, no matter how small it seems, is part of a much bigger plan unfolding behind the scenes. And the more you study these moves, the more it feels like the Patriots are trying to eliminate as many weaknesses as possible before the season even begins. Not by making one massive splash, but by stacking smart, calculated decisions on top of each other. Depth at cornerback gets addressed with Kendall Vildor. Future planning at safety starts to take shape with prospects like Zachy Wheatley. Special teams get stronger. Familiarity within the system increases. It all adds up. What stands out the most is how intentional everything feels. There's a clear avoidance of desperation, no overpaying, no panic signings, no chasing headlines. Instead, it's about controlling the roster, controlling the development pipeline, and ultimately controlling how this team evolves over the next few seasons. And if you're a Patriots fan, that should at least give you some confidence that there's a real plan in place. Because even if not, every move becomes a major success. The overall structure being built here gives this team a much higher margin for error. When you have depth, when you have versatility, and when you have players who understand the system, you give yourself a chance to stay competitive no matter what challenges come up during the season. Now, all eyes turn to the draft. That's where this strategy is either going to fully come together or where we might see a shift. Will they stay disciplined and continue building piece by piece? Or is there a bigger move coming that no one sees yet? Because here's the reality, what we're watching right now isn't just roster building, it's identity building. Every move, every visit, every signing is shaping what this Patriots team is going to look like when they finally take the field. And the biggest takeaway so far is that this team wants to be deep, disciplined, and prepared for anything. You can already imagine how this plays out during the season. Injuries happen, rotations get tested, situational football becomes everything. And that's where players like Kendall Vildor suddenly become much more important than people realize today. Maybe he's not starting in week 1, but what happens in week 8 when someone needs a breather or misses time? What happens in a critical third down package where versatility matters more than star power? That's exactly why these types of signings exist. And the same logic applies to the draft approach we talked about. Bringing in a developmental safety like Zachy Wheatley isn't about headlines. It's about making sure that when the moment comes, you're not scrambling for answers. You already have them on your roster, developing behind the scenes. Another thing that can't be ignored is how this approach impacts competition inside the locker room. When you bring in multiple players who can fill similar roles, nobody's position is guaranteed. Every snap in training camp matters. Every preseason rep matters. That kind of environment tends to bring out the best in players, especially the younger ones who are trying to prove they belong. And let's be honest, that's been a missing element at times. When depth is thin, competition drops. When competition drops, performance can follow, but what the Patriots are doing right now is creating layers. Layers of talent, layers of options, layers of security. It might not be flashy, but it's effective. Now, the real intrigue comes from what we haven't seen yet, because if this is how they're handling the smaller moves, what happens when they address the bigger needs? What happens when they finally make their decision at wide receiver or edge rusher in the draft? Do they continue this same philosophy of balance and patience, or do they take a calculated swing at a difference maker? That's where this offseason could truly shift from being solid to being something much more impactful. So as everything continues to unfold, keep paying attention to the details. Because with this team, the details are telling the real story. And when you really step back and look at everything as a whole, you start to realize that nothing about this offseason has been random. Every move connects. Every addition has a purpose. And more importantly, every decision feels like it's building towards something bigger that we haven't fully seen yet. Think about it. This way, by adding players like Kendall Vildor, the Patriots are quietly protecting themselves against the unexpected door. They're making sure that if something goes wrong during the season, they're not forced into desperate adjustments. Instead, they'll already have players in place who understand their roles, who fit the system, and who can step in without everything falling apart. And that level of preparation can be the difference between a team that collapses under pressure and a team that stays competitive deep into the season. At the same time, the focus on developmental talent like Zachy Wheatley shows that they're not just thinking about surviving this season, they're thinking about what this roster looks like a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe even 3. That's how sustained success is built in this league. Not just by reacting to needs, but by anticipating them before they become problems. Another layer to this that stands out is how the Patriots are valuing versatility across the board. Players who can contribute in multiple phases: defense, special teams, rotational packages, are clearly being prioritized. And in today's NFL, that kind of flexibility is incredibly valuable. It allows you to adjust week to week, opponent to opponent, without having to completely reshape your roster. So when you combine all of this depth signings, coaching familiarity, special teams emphasis, and long-term draft planning, you start to see a team that is trying to rebuild its foundation the right way. Not rushed, not forced, but structured. Now the real question moving forward is how quickly this approach translates into results on the field. Because building the roster is one thing, but executing on Sundays is something completely different. Are these depth moves going to hold up when they're tested? Will these developmental players actually turn into reliable contributors? And will this patient strategy pay off sooner than expected, or take more time than fans are willing to wait? That's the tension surrounding this team right now. There's a plan. You can clearly see it. But until it all comes together on the field, there's always going to be that level of uncertainty. Because that's really what this all comes down to, the balance between patience and urgency. The Patriots are clearly choosing patience right now. They're trusting the process, trusting the structure they're building, and trusting that stacking the right pieces over time will eventually lead them back to where they want to be. But in today's NFL, patience can be a risky game. Fans want results. They want to see progress not just on paper, but on the field. They want to feel like the team is taking real steps forward, not just preparing for the future. And that's why every move, no matter how small, is being analyzed so closely. A signing like Kendall Vildor might not excite everyone, but it represents something bigger, a commitment to building the roster the right way, even if it takes time.